Yuri Boyka, a highly acclaimed MMA fighter in Europe, currently lives in Kiev, Ukraine, and is revered as the undefeated champion in his field. Participating in an illicit match held in an underground arena, Boyka's exceptional skills received a resounding round of applause from the enthusiastic audience. Overpowering his opponent throughout the match, he concluded the bout with a remarkable mid-air kick that rendered his adversary unconscious. Meanwhile, inside a high-security prison in Russia, guards and wardens find entertainment in the fights between inmates. All of these fights may seem amicable to outsiders. They can turn exceptionally brutal with the right participants. Among the prisoners, Kashmar is notorious for being the most dangerous inmate of all time. He is a fierce giant, so much so that his limbs are restrained, and his mouth is shut to prevent him from harming anyone outside of the ring. In a recent match, Kashmar's opponent, half his size, is unable to land even a single punch on him. Kashmar slams him to the ground, breaking his neck, and then proceeds to pound his face until it is unrecognizable. Kashmar has a reputation for killing every opponent he faces and showing no mercy, making him more of a monster than a human. On the other hand, Boyka, a wanted criminal in Russia, is a fundamentally good person outside of the ring. Despite serving several years in prison, he strives to improve himself and regularly participates in charitable work, even assisting the church in Kiev. However, during a conversation with a supportive priest, Boyka is advised to contemplate pursuing a different profession, leaving him surprised. Nonetheless, he believes that his fighting skills are a gift from God and refuses to give up on them. Wishing to compete professionally in a legal setting, Boyka gets a chance to fight in a legit MMA match in Budapest. He prepares for his qualifying match against Russian opponent Victor. Boyka shows off his defensive skills and impresses the judges. He lands a knee to Victor's jaw, but Victor refuses to give up. Boyka knocks Victor down a second time, and then a third time, rendering him unconscious. As a result of this victory, Boyka is invited to fight in Budapest and given a significant amount of money. Boyka feels guilty for hurting Victor so badly and has a nightmare about killing an opponent. Later, he learns that Victor died in the hospital, and he feels responsible. The manager gives Boyka a bag that belonged to Victor when he asks about his family. In the package, Boyka finds a letter and a photo of Victor and his wife. The letter discloses the anguish that Victor's wife endured upon hearing about his death. Boyka is deeply moved by her grief and decides to make amends by apologizing to her and ensuring that she is not facing any hardships in her life. Although he knows that his past wrongdoings cannot be excused, he is determined to seek redemption. Boyka expresses his desire to meet Victor's wife in Russia to his manager, who strongly opposes the idea due to the risks of his criminal past catching up with him. Despite this, Boyka remains resolute in his decision. In the following scene, we meet Alma, Victor's wife, who is attending his funeral. She is alone and struggling to pay off her debt to a crime boss named Zurab. At the funeral, Zurab suggests that Alma become his mistress to settle her debt, but Alma responds tactfully, stating that she would prefer to work hard and repay the debt. She owns and resides in a community center with no one else in her life. Alma and Victor constructed a community center using funds borrowed from Zurab. The center serves as a home to orphans and those in need. Upon his arrival in Russia, Boyka searches for Alma, only to see her being taken away by some men in a black car. It turns out that Alma works as a waitress at Zurab's illegal fighting club, and he treats her possessively. Boyka tries to speak with Alma at the club, but is stopped by Zurab's men. When Boyka asks when Alma will finish work, the gangsters attack him, but he defeats them in a fight. Zurab is impressed with Boyka's fighting skills and wants to hire him, but Boyka is only interested in meeting Alma. The next day, Boyka sneaks into the community center to meet Alma and give her a letter from Victor. Alma reveals that she is working at the fight club to pay off a debt and refuses to listen to Boyka's explanation about Victor's death. Boyka agrees to fight for Zurab, but he must forget about Alma's death. The deal is that Boyka will win 3 matches of Zurab's choice, and in return, Zurab promises to protect him from the authorities. Alma meets Boyka and tells him to go home, but he insists on fighting for his own satisfaction. Boyka trains for the matches, but is bullied by a man and responds with a single kick. In the first fight, Boyka easily defeats a local fighter who accepts defeat before Boyka can hurt him further. Alma stirs drinks after the fight, and Boyka asks her for a good local gym. Alma invites him to use the gym in her community center, and Boyka trains there for a few days. During Boyka's next match, he finds out it's a 2-versus-1 fight against 2 brothers, which shocks him. Zurab claims it's his arena and the fighters must follow the rules. Boyka struggles to defend himself against both brothers, but manages to knock them both down. However, he's kicked in his already injured lower back and feels unbearable pain until he sees Alma in the audience. He continues fighting and ultimately defeats both brothers, earning a double knockout and surprising the crowd. Zurab tries to flirt with Alma, but when she rebuffs him, he accuses her of sleeping with Boyka and claims her husband's death was intentional. Alma pretends not to believe him, but his comments unsettle her. Meanwhile, Boyka's manager calls him back to Ukraine for a press meeting, but Boyka asks for a postponement as he has one final fight to win. Alma confronts Boyka about her husband's death, and he tells her about the struggles he's faced and how the match against Victor was his chance to escape. He won, but Victor's death took a toll on him. Boyka asks Alma to let him help her, even though he knows it won't be easy for her to accept. In the final match at night, Boyka faces off against Igor, who is Zurab's top fighter and has been taunting Boyka since he arrived. Igor is particularly angry with Boyka because he sees him as a threat to his position in the gang. He unleashes his frustration on Boyka, relentlessly attacking him and targeting his lower back. Despite this, Boyka puts up a strong fight, and his fortunes change when he lands a powerful mid-air double kick on Igor. Boyka then proceeds to pummel Igor, causing him to bleed heavily and eventually pass out, thus winning the tournament and settling Alma's debt. However, Zurab had already anticipated this outcome and arranged for Boyka to fight one last opponent before their agreement could be fulfilled. Despite having only a few hours before an important meeting in Budapest, Boyka refuses to abandon Alma and requests that the manager delay the fight until the following morning. Boyka prepares to face the final champion to conclude his obligation. Boyka faces off against Koshmar, a notorious beast who has killed all his opponents in the Russian prison. Despite being brought in chains due to his violent nature, Koshmar dominates the fight as Boyka grows tired, and his attacks prove ineffective against the beast's physique. Boyka is knocked down multiple times, but he rises again and eventually gains the upper hand, breaking Koshmar's arm and winning the match. However, Zurab, unwilling to let go of Alma, orders his minions to attack Boyka while he tries to escape with her. Boyka fights back, kills the guards, and strangles Zurab to death. Despite being shot in the process, Boyka asks for Alma's forgiveness before being arrested and returned to the prison. A month later, Alma forgives Boyka, bringing him a sense of relief. Though his plan to become a professional fighter failed, Boyka continues to fight in the prison's arena and holds the title of Undisputed Champion.